All right. Here we go. What's up, not horror fans? God damn it, it's not the Lastercast. Comic book fans. This is Pete from Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about all of the comic book shows and movies that are adapted from your favorite comics. In this case, we're talking about Black Adam, which just ended up in theaters today. Brian, you saw Black Adam this morning, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I saw it today. 10 a.m. matinee, the cheapest way possible.
Nice, nice. Okay, well, was it a full theater?
No. It almost never is on that early in the morning. Like really big films. I feel like the last time I went that early and it was that crowded was like No Way Home.
Oh, okay.
Like
Yeah.
that was packed even earlier on in the day. But I don't like normally it's usually pretty empty.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say, like, do you know anything about the box office for this movie so far?
I read something about it making like almost 8 million on Thursday night, but that
That's
was the
good.
only thing I've seen so far.
That's good, right? I think.
Yeah, that's decent. I mean, yeah, I think that's decent.
Nice. So, for those of you guys that are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. We could always use some more people commenting. But besides that, we usually talk about two things every time we have an episode. So, in this case, we're talking about Black Adam, starring Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and then we're also going to talk about episode 7 of Andor. So, one thing that we're going to do that's a little different today too is I told Brian I want to start ranking things or giving like number grades for things. So I'm going to tell you my number grade out of 10 for for Black Adam, and then we'll go into like a spoiler filled review, and then we'll do Andor. And also, we're going to rank all of the DCEU movies. There's 13 of them, and we're going to rank all 13 of them before we move on over to Andor. Okay. So we want to know
All
what
right.
you guys think, though, too. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah,
What
I,
are you
I got a
going to say?
question on your ranking here about this too. So are you ranking this like against the other DCEU movies or just as a movie in general?
Okay, okay. So, I just realized that like a lot of my favorite YouTube shows that I watch that always talk about movies, they always do like 5 stars or best movie ever, worst movie ever, or 10. I give it a 6.5 out of 10. So I wanted to sort of give it a number rank, out of 10 for this movie. But then also, you and I, we always kind of rank, each movie that's been released. We kind of say where it's going to fall on the scale, and so it's two different things.
Okay.
You get me?
So the yeah, no. So like let's say you gave this movie a 5 out of 10 or something. Like that's just as a movie and it's not like saying, "Oh, this is a 5 because it's like worse than Man of Steel or something or is like, like would you put your favorite DC movie as a 10 automatically because, it's your favorite one?
No, no. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if my number one movie on out of the DCEU movies is a 10. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I would give out 10s very sparingly.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like to put it in context for you guys that know me and Brian, like I would put Transformers the movie from 1986. That would be a 10 in
Oh,
my
it's 11.
book. It's an 11. Yes, exactly,
Right.
exactly. And like The Dark Knight, I would make that a 10,
Yeah.
but then like Man of Steel, I don't know. So we're going to go into all those rankings, and I'm very curious because we haven't done a DC ranking in a while. We do the
I
Marvel
think
ones all the
well,
time.
I don't think we've ever done one on the show. I mean, did we? I mean, we must have did it for the Suicide Squad, but I don't have any record of writing it down. So
Yeah, yeah. So this might be our first official one, and I'm going to be very
yeah,
curious to see what you have to say.
yeah.
So
I spent a long time trying to find something that I wrote down previously, and I couldn't. So I just kind of went off the cuff here, and I don't know if I'm like totally happy and set in stone with it, really. But yeah,
yeah, it's all good. These things kind of change over time. My Marvel list absolutely changes all the time.
yeah. Well,
So
the funny thing is, I write the list down so that I have a reference of what I thought previously.
good
Just
call.
so I'm not like drastically changing something just because I thought of it differently in a different moment, I guess. But I
Yeah,
guess that also, I mean, with Marvel too, there's so many movies, and we're
I
starting to
know.
get there with DC. This is what this is 13
13.
out of 13 movies we're
Yeah,
ranking here. Some of them aren't actually DCEU; it's just DC theatrical releases. So
yeah. So it's a horse of a different color, but and there's definitely like the level of quality is definitely different between all of these movies too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's get into Black Adam then, so I can tell you my rating right off the bat. So it's going to be spoiler free at first, and then we'll go into spoilers. But for me, I would give this movie a 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Wait, you want to tell me yours?
I gotta think about it. Wait, no. Explain why you thought that overall, and I'll jump in after and explain my general thoughts.
Don't mind if I do. Okay, so I thought the movie was fun at times, but I felt myself being bored at certain points, and I wanted to get to the next point. And for me, it's like I could tell the plot points like 3 scenes in advance. So I'm like, okay, I know this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and with superhero movies, they can be very predictable since there are so many of them and since we're so familiar with comics. But when a movie is made in a certain way, even when you can kind of predict what's going to happen next, the scene that you're watching is so enjoyable that it kind of doesn't matter that you know what's happening next, or you're so engrossed in the current scene that you're not thinking 2 steps ahead. But if you're kind of bored or everything's kind of going exactly the way you expect it to go, then you're like, all right, well, we got to get to this point, then we got to get to this point. And you're just kind of waiting for those moments that are different. And this movie does have a few of those moments. That's why it's a 6.5. But overall, I felt like it was very like paint by numbers. What does save the movie is The Rock's performance. As always, he's extremely charismatic. I mean, there's a reason why everyone loves him and says he's a movie star. He's great. He's, he's kind of like the Terminator, the sort of like alien kind of presence in the modern world. And he plays that very well. And there's a couple of interactions between him and the Justice Society members that are funny, and I enjoyed that. But I just like there was a lot of jokes that fall flat, and there was a lot of exposition. And for those of you people that watch our show, people know that I get bothered by jokes that fall flat. And when there's exposition dumps, that's kind of like the kiss of death for me. And boy, does this movie have like an exposition dump right at the very beginning.
Yeah, it certainly does. Okay, so I'm gonna say I'm torn here because like I actually kind of did like the movie a lot.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's like an amazingly high rated movie. I want to say like a 7 or a 7.5, but
yeah,
since I haven't really ranked movies like this in a long time, I could be just like completely screwing up a scale. He sets a scale here for later on, you know.
yeah.
So I'll say a 7.5 for now.
Okay,
I certainly agree with you about the movie hitting a lot of very predictable beats. Even though this isn't necessarily based on any exact comic, I think it draws we can see some inspiration. It's drawn from some comics we both have read.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 52 series in particular. It is very predictable overall, and I didn't mind the joke so much. I think I took issue with the with Black Adam's fish out of water a little bit. I feel like he's supposed to be a bit more of a serious character, I think. So I don't think the jokes worked as much, but at the same time, and I think the one that I had the most problem with was the about the catchphrase.
Oh,
like, throughout the whole movie, that bothered me, but for some reason, when he says it at the end, it kind of landed for me.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't think I think that's really the only humor that fell flat for me though was the fish out of water stuff earlier on in the movie. I liked the sarcasm jokes and the repetition of that. I liked that the uncle guy. I thought he was funny every time I saw him, pretty much.
See, that's where we kind of differ. The uncle, I'd say that like for me, 40% of the time his jokes landed, and then 60% they did not.
No, I liked him.
Yeah, but that's where you and I differ. I don't think I've ever admitted this to you, but I actually don't really like K2SO in Rogue One either. And I know you're a fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I loved him.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that like my wife and my brother-in-law are such sticklers when it comes to movies, and they always kind of point out like, oh, well, we've seen this 80 million times, or I've seen this before, and they kind of point out flaws in movies. Well, why didn't this happen? Or, this is what would normally happen. And I don't ever want to be that person, but I do find that like if they're spending like $200 million or more to make a movie, and it's based on stuff that people love, and they're just like waiting years and years and years to see these movies, I kind of hold it to a higher standard. It's like you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. Like every movie is hard to make, but
Yeah, of course.
like your joke's got to fucking land, man. And like I got to care about the characters. I got to feel suspense. And I feel like this movie is like a 6.5. It's like a passing grade, but I feel like it's just not what it should be for $200 million plus dollars.
Yeah, I don't particularly know what the budget here, and I mean, I went into this with very low expectations. Honestly,
Yeah.
this was like a white whale movie for me, and not that I necessarily was dying to see it or see this character on the big screen,
Right.
but this movie was like first announced with The Rock in like 2006 or 2007. That's how long it's been rumored, and that's a really long time ago. Like I thought this movie was never going to come out, and it actually did. I'm like I feel like I should be eating a sock or a tie or something here, just because
Yes.
I actually just paid money to go see it.
Yes.
So, but and maybe that extremely low expectation going into it was how it passed a little higher for me, I guess.
Well, as far as like the background goes, I did do a little research on it, and like in 2006 or so, that was when they were talking about making a Shazam movie, and they were thinking of having The Rock play Shazam, right, or Captain Marvel, and then he got interested in the Black Adam character. Then they decided, okay, well, we need to make a Black Adam movie that's just separate away from Shazam. And so, yeah, it has been in some phase of development going back till like, mid 2000s, right? But at first he was possibly going to play Shazam. And I know like COVID pushed this movie back and a whole bunch of things pushed this movie back. But I kind of feel like this is maybe the best they could ever get it. Because when you look at the Shazam movie, like, did you see the trailer for the new Shazam movie before you watched this?
Yes, I did. Yes.
How'd you feel about that trailer?
It looks okay. I think the strongest point of the first movie that it felt so different from all the other DCEU movies that it kind of gave itself a boost.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is going to carry over as well in a sequel necessarily.
That's
and also that was based on a that was pretty much based on a single story arc from the New 52 Captain Marvel. Actually, no, they start calling him Shazam then.
Shazam, yeah, he's been Shazam for a while now.
Yeah, I couldn't remember when the cutover was, but it felt like that's that first trade of that New 52 series.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I don't think is based on anything. I think it's an original creation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I always think back to Hellboy 2. Like, I love Hellboy 2 is great. I mean, I love Hellboy 1 too, but Hellboy 2 was completely original for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Right, right.
And so I don't want to pass a judgment on it. I mean, but I guess I'm not as interested in it as I was for the first one.
Yeah. And it's funny because there's so many similarities between that first movie and this Black Adam movie. And there's a reason why I brought up the Shazam sequel too. I feel like they're having their own little shared universe of just these three movies now, because I have a very strong feeling that like Black Adam's going to just randomly show up in Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Like, I think there'll be at least a reference to him or something.
Yeah, they probably have to reference them. Although I feel like setting them as their own movies, setting them apart like that, kind of disconnects them in a way.
Right.
And I think it's going to be weird when they try to put them together now.
Right.
And also, actually, let me say one more thing. I think this was the right way to do it, honestly. I might not have said that before this movie, but I think I was satisfied enough with the movie that I think that it was a smarter idea to have him come in this movie rather than just appear in Shazam first.
Yes, I agree with you. I think that the kind of movie that Shazam is, this is the right choice, right? And this was good on its own. It makes me think about Venom and like the Sony Spider-Man movies, how like Venom is just this own thing without Spider-Man.
Yeah.
This is different because Jamon Houston, who is the wizard in Shazam, is in this movie too, in Black Adam. And it looks like he's even more in Shazam 2, The Fury of the Gods or whatever. But these two movies are very similar, the Shazam movie and Black Adam, in the sense that they're both directed by horror directors. And they have this sort of funny approach to these characters that are these sort of like old-fashioned kind of characters. So these modern kind of funny takes on these old-fashioned characters. You know, I can't remember the director of Shazam off the top of my head, but I know that he, you know, did Lights Out. He did Annabelle Creation, and I really like Annabelle Creation. I haven't seen Lights Out. But the guy that directed this movie, his name, I'm going to mess up the pronunciation.
David F. Sandberg.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's Shazam 1 and 2 right there. But then for this movie, the guy's name is Jaume Collet Serra, and he directed the 2005 House of Wax. He directed the shark movie The Shallows. He did the original Orphan, and he's done a few Liam Neeson action movies, including Unknown and Nonstop. And so I have to say that the direction of this movie and the look of this movie, I definitely enjoyed. There's one scene in particular. We can kind of maybe start to veer into spoilers now. So spoilers if you haven't seen Black Adam. There's this one scene where Black Adam is talking to this boy, Amon, who we'll talk about them in a second. But he's talking to this boy, and the boy is going down a spiral staircase in an apartment complex, and Black Adam's just kind of floating down the spiral staircase, and he's talking to him. And I like little small details like that in my superhero movies because it's like, just do something different. Just like do something that looks different than what we always see. Like with comics, the really excellent writers are the ones that use the artist's full potential. It's like, yes, of course you want to hit these specific story beats, you want to have these character moments, but the artist really knows like, oh, this is the comic book writer knows, okay, this person draws in this kind of style, so I'm going to really exploit that. And I feel like in modern superhero movies, they're very like kind of by the books and cookie cutter. And so anytime there's like a little bit of creative license, it really excites me. Do you know what I'm talking about with that scene with him kind of floating down like that?
Yeah, it was definitely unique. Yeah. I feel like there was some shot somewhere too where they showed Black Adam like flying towards you as he like threw something. I thought that was kind of interesting and creative too, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly where it was.
Yeah. And I mean, like, maybe I can kind of tie this all into my discussion about the director, because I want to talk about the writers too. But like, I just watched this really great video essay on Zack Snyder that Patrick H. Willems did on his channel. And it was this really great over an hour discussion about Zack Snyder. And he was talking about how Zack Snyder really just wants to make these epic mythological movies, and you don't really need to read into the story points so much or like the commentary. It's really about making things look cool. And that's what I feel like a lot of the DCEU movies are. I feel like they're the inverse of Marvel. Like Marvel is so much about like building the lore and connecting the lore, and they all kind of look like kind of generic for the most part. And then the DCEU movies, a lot of them have these like mythical kind of epic shots, but the lore is just like all over the fucking place. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, the connectivity is varied. I think. I mean, maybe with the exception of Amanda Waller seems to show up in everything lately.
Right, right.
Maybe that's they're Nick Fury in a sense.
Yeah, I think that's what they're definitely trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you mean there. There's less mythology and less tying in the backstories. Although I did feel pretty strongly about the implied history of the JSA here in this movie, and I really liked how much they were in the movie. I was very thankful that they were in it as much as they were.
Yes. Well, you know what? Let's dive into the JSA, but right before we do that, I always like to do the behind the scenes stuff. I already talked about the director. The movie was written by 3 men, but one of them was Adam Seitzel, and he wrote Due Date, which is like this movie with like Zach Galifianakis and Robert Downey Jr. Maid of Honor, which I think is with like J-Lo as like a maid who gets with like Ray Fiennes or something. Undateable, which is a TV series. Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Chip. and then Rampage, which I guess that's kind of his connection to The Rock, you know?
Okay.
So, like, none of these movies are necessarily like Oscar quality. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're kind of cheesy movies.
Are you kidding me? I love the Road Chip.
Oh, you do? Okay, all right, cool. Well, have you ever watched the Chipmunks porno Chip Munched?
Oh no.
Yes, I've been dying to use that for my whole life.
I haven't watched or heard of that before.
There you go. All right, X videos. I wonder why our audience isn't expanding. But anyway, like you were talking about the JSA. Okay, so if we're talking about the writing of this movie, what's weird about this is you have this toy box in front of you, and you can use these fucking iconic characters. But with the JSA, they're sort of use at your own risk because, like, some of them have very, very convoluted backstories and could easily be ridiculous and weird. Case in point, like this guy right here, Hawkman, right? I have all these Black Adam tie-in comics that are in this world of the Black Adam movie, and they don't really go into a lot of detail about the characters in this world, but like the details are kind of weird. Like with Hawkman, for instance, they talk about how he has nth metal, but they don't talk about any of his reincarnations or anything like that. Did you notice that?
Yes, I noticed that they kind of shied away from that. I did feel they were implying that he was either older than he looks, or he has had past lives. I mean, I could have been reading into that just based on my knowledge of the character, but it's like I don't think he's like some 35-year-old guy, like who's Black Panther sort of, you know, with a hawk feet, you know.
Right. And that in itself, I'm really glad you made that comparison, because the problem with these DC movies is that Marvel has such a head start that it makes it look like their characters, which were around since like World War II or before, it makes it look like they're copying off of Marvel, which a lot of their characters are from the 60s. So it's like, that upsets me. Like, because I could easily see someone connecting Hawkman to Black Panther. You know, makes a lot of sense. And honestly, I felt like Hawkman seemed almost derivative of the Falcon from the Marvel movies too.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yes, with the whole bird motif, yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of the way that he talked and stuff too. Like he's like, you and me, you know, like just kind of that, you know, kind of tough guy kind of way that Falcon talks too.
See, I like that. I like that joke too. That joke landed for me, especially the second time.
Oh, that was my favorite part of the whole fucking movie. That was a joke that landed. I love that. But you know, just kind of going with what I'm saying though, like another example is this character right here, which is another one of these tie-in comics. These are all written by Cavan Scott, and it's, you know, there's a Dr. Fate comic, and if you notice that it has like the Tower of Fate, and it looks like a big penis right there, right? But
it does. Holy shit. Wow.
But when they talk about the Helmet of Fate in the movie, they say that it's millions of years old, and they say that's from another planet. And I was like, what? Like that's not the comic at all, you know?
Yeah, I felt they veered off with Dr. Fate a little bit. I mean, I guess I'm more used to the how they're telling it in Young Justice than anything else. But like I was half expecting there to be, you know, the helmet showing up on some kid's doorstep somewhere or something like that, you know?
Oh, it absolutely will.
Instead of, well, it looked like it disintegrated potentially, but
yeah, but I feel like it's just going to reform somewhere else, and someone's going to have it.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm sure they can still do that.
Yeah, and obviously we have talked about spoilers, but the other two comics that tie in, you have Cyclone, and you also have Atom Smasher. So all members of the team, they have individual comics. But like I said, just going back to that one point, it does seem like they're kind of ripping off Marvel characters, but yet like Dr. Fate is from like before World War II, you know?
Yeah.
And people are going to say that he's just basically Doctor Strange, because like his main powers in this movie are that he can kind of see the future and try to change it, which Doctor Strange infamously does in Infinity War and Endgame. And then he also makes like multiple copies of himself to attack someone, which Doctor Strange does in Infinity War, you know?
Yeah, I feel like the visual effects they used to show his powers too were very much like the almost Inception like mirrory things.
Right.
And there weren't nearly enough Anks.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, he would make one of the kind of like shoot it down like a torpedo or something, but like, this is a guy that like he just has such incredible powers. He could do so much, and they kind of like gave him like 3 powers basically,
Yeah.
And then also, um, Black Adam himself kind of comes off like Drax, right? He's this muscular, bald guy that's okay with killing people and is invulnerable, and he's also doesn't really get humor and stuff. So like even Black Adam seems a little derivative of Drax.
Yeah, I could sort of see that. I was getting more like Terminator vibes, like T2 as well.
Yes.
And to me that was one of the weaker points. I mean, I know I said earlier the fish out of water stuff just didn't land for me in this movie. And until that very end scene. Yeah, like it's The Rock though. I mean, this movie was sold by The Rock for the public. This movie was sold by The Rock, not the character. And we mentioned that before in previous videos, how sometimes a character will sell an actor will sell a lesser known character rather than letting the character speak for itself.
Right.
This is definitely the former with that.
Oh yeah. And that's a point that you've brought up multiple times in the show, and that's a really good point. Yeah. And that like he makes me want to go see a sequel to this. And he carried this whole movie. He did a great job.
Yeah, but you know what though? I don't know if I'd want to see I mean, I think a lot of my enjoyment came from the JSA here. And I think I wouldn't necessarily want to see a sequel without the JSA.
Right. Well, I think, and since we're completely spoiling this movie, I think that the direction they're going is that a couple of things. Like, I think that they could have potentially a movie where him and Superman fight each other. There is an animated movie, and it's kind of based on a limited series, where it's like Shazam, Black Adam, and Superman all fighting each other together. And I feel like that might be the next step.
I suppose I could see that. Although I think there's better things to draw from.
Oh maybe. Yeah, I didn't actually think that limited series was that great, and it was weird they made a movie of it. But I think it's just because it's like one of those things where they want to show Shazam, but it's like you have to bring in a more established person, like Superman, like the most established person, And I think that they also, you mentioned 52, like this obviously draws from 52, and then there was like this tie-in miniseries called World War III, which is like this little spin-off of 52. And then also there was JSA, one of the runs was or miniseries or whatever was called Dark Reign, where like he takes over Kahndaq and he has his own team. And so this movie like draws heavily from all 3 of those. But I feel like if you know about the woman in it, I can't remember her fucking name, the character. I wrote down all these notes.
I remember the actress' name. I don't remember the character's name.
I don't remember. But see, like we should remember the characters' names from watching this movie.
Adriana Tomas and Amon.
Adriana Tomas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So played by Sarah Sahai or whatever. Shahi. Thank you. But
I actually looked that up because I always just say it wrong.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I say it like you said it. I'm like, that can't be right. I want to make sure.
Yeah, no, well, that's good on a show like this. Well, and that's another thing that's cool about this movie is that it's like, it's all just set in this sort of, this fictional Middle Eastern country, right? Or this like kind of like Egyptian type country. It's not a real country, but obviously has like a very international kind of cast to it.
Yeah. Yes.
But I was going to say that like Adriana in the comics, she eventually becomes a character known as Isis, who's like part of the Black Adam family. Yes. And just how like Shazam has his whole family, like she's one, and then her son, Amon, also becomes Osiris.
Yes. I do remember that from 52.
Yeah. And so here's a big spoiler. This is for potential future Black Adam movies. Just, for people that don't want to spoil future movies, maybe just turn this off. But like in the 52 comic, they both get killed by these creatures. I can't remember I think the creatures actually work for Intergang too. But they both get murdered. And then that's what makes Black Adam just go crazy and he almost starts World War III.
Yeah, I don't remember that much about it because I mean that we're talking about a comic series it's like 10 years old at least. So
Oh, at least it's probably from like early 2000s. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because they had like a pet alligator. He was like kind of like their version of talking Tawny from the Shazam family, and then that alligator was like a creature that worked for the bad guys, and it like ate the fucking kid, Osiris. Yeah. That was like the last panel of one of the issues of 52. Was that thing just fucking eating him, and so Black Adam just loses his shit, and so I think that they maybe could do that moving forward.
yeah, that could work absolutely.
Yeah, because like Shazam, and I know you know all this, Brian, but like for people that don't know, like Shazam and Black Adam, they were all made by Fawcett Comics, and Shazam at one point, or Captain Marvel, which was his original name, was like more popular than Superman at one point, but it was just he was a big ripoff of Superman, and he had this huge cast of characters, a whole bunch of villains, whole bunch of supporting characters, and Black Adam was one of his villains. Sabak, who's in this movie, is another one of his villains too. And then he also had this whole Legion of Monsters. And like I think that crocodile guy was from that. And so I could see them doing like a Legion of Monsters thing and tying in the Shazam movie and the Black Adam movie and maybe even bringing in Superman. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose that could work. Yeah, and that whole story with Fawcett Comics and DC basically suing them is very interesting. Maybe we should cover that a little more in depth some other point, but because I don't remember all the details of it right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, it's super super interesting shit. But it's just so cool. All the weird random stuff that they've made, and they have all these cool interesting villains. Like the Shazam himself looks like Superman and has kind of the same kind of disposition and has similar powers, but his whole origin and everything is way different and weirder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I feel like I've been talking a lot about this. What else you got to say about Black Adam? Bring me some more.
I thought one of the lower points I thought was when the JSA first comes in, they're very heavy-handed about, oh yeah, we're all about enforcing justice and global stability, and like it was just like so contrasted to what the state of things were in Kahndaq, because I think Adriana said something like they've been occupied by Intergang for 27 years or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like a little too much, I guess. Like, like they were a little too clueless, I guess.
Yes.
And that kind of struck me as a little odd that they would write that in like that. I think something you mentioned in your notes as well. They don't really talk about how Black Adam suddenly understands and speaks English. I mean, I'm sure you could infer some kind of wisdom of Solomon kind of thing or something.
Yeah.
But would have been nice to connect that little bit of a dot, though. I also thought Sabak was kind of underdeveloped.
Yeah.
And it's they very much made him a very throwaway, one-note villain sort of. It was kind of like a inverse of powers of the hero, which is funny because Black Adam is basically that of Shazam already.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked a little more development there, I think, with that character in the background there, and outside of just telling like, oh, I'm the descendant of this guy, and I want to rule just and unleash hell. Why?
Yeah.
Like, why? No, seriously, why?
That is a good point. Yeah. He kind of seemed a lot like many of these DCEU villains at the very end, where they open up a portal into the sky, and then
there's always a portal. There's always a sky portal.
Yes, and he's just kind of big and just kind of shoots fire at people. Not very interesting at that point. You could tell, like even in the very beginning when you had the group with Adriana Tomaz going into that cave, it's like, oh, okay, this guy's the one that's going to betray them. He's the bad one. And then it's like, okay, well, he lives. So he's going to be the main bad guy. He's going to turn into Sabak at the end.
The second I saw him, like, he looks like the guy who was the villain in True Lies.
Yes,
I know he can't be. He can't be because there's no way, unless he hasn't aged at all in 30 years.
Right.
But
No,
I'm like, he's got to be the bad guy.
Yeah, he's the bad guy. Right, exactly. But I
Like
mean,
the exact same hairline, sort of, you know?
yes. But it's just that's the thing is that there's so many weird story points. Like the fact that she did mention that they've been in charge for 27 years. It's like why that number? Why were they in charge for so long? You know?
Yeah.
And in all those 27 years, they couldn't find this crown that was in a cave. Like that just seems weird. They had this like massive mining operation.
Yeah,
And
and
they
that was
couldn't.
another question too. So Eternium, I don't remember ever hearing about Eternium before. Is that actually something?
No, I don't think it's a thing. And I mean, that opens up a whole nother door of discussion too. In the past like 5 years or so, Scott Snyder has really kind of taken over the mythology of DC, and he made it that like certain metals are really important. And nth metal is one of them. I don't think Eternium is another one of them though.
Yeah.
And I personally do like the idea of like there's these special metals and they do this stuff because um so much of DC is also just like the frequencies of things. Like the way that you can travel to different worlds in the multiverse is they're just different frequencies, and you just have to
Yeah.
adjust your frequency. Um, and also like there's the idea of like that the DC universe is a song. That's something that kind of Grant Morrison goes into in Final Crisis. But I really like the idea of like metal being important and like almost like pitchforks or tuning forks,
Yeah.
because so I'm cool with them doing that. And maybe even the idea of like maybe Eternium is like pieces of the rock of what's it
Oh
fucking
yeah, the
called?
Rocket Return. God, I didn't even fucking think of that. Wow, I'm dumb.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so clearly, yeah, that's like, unobtainium, like sort of thing. And it's so dumb and obvious. Like I don't know why I didn't think of it this time.
No, it's okay, but like I think the reason why they even used it in the first place, I guess they needed kind of like a reason why the slaves were doing something in the past. And so they had to like be digging for stuff. And so they find this Eternium and it makes the crown. Okay, we get it. And then like I guess you needed some kind of kryptonite for Black Adam. Because essentially just any kind of human person or even superpowered people, he's pretty much easy to mop the floor with them. But
Yeah,
then once you had like an Eterni powered weapon, then he could get hurt.
yeah. Although he seemed to kind of heal himself after that first encounter with it.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, good point. Just like that bothered me, like the dump in the beginning where they just tell you this whole like story of Kondak and all that is like it's like too much at first, and then it was just weird that like this like criminal organization just controls this country, and it's in a world where you're establishing that there are superheroes, so it's like no one has ever taken on this criminal organization, you know.
Yeah, and part of me also, it's like in the sense that this group has taken over this country and occupied it, and they're called Intergang.
Right, exactly.
Intergang,
right.
Maybe make some kind of reveal where it's like, oh, it's Intergang the whole time behind this government or whatever.
Please, exactly.
Yeah, that's like the joke in the Bumblebee movie where it's like they're literally called Decepticons.
right. It's so like it's like little things like that. I don't try to nitpick movies to make them like to not enjoy them. It's just that there's certain things where they're just too much like in your face to where it kind of takes you out of it. And it's those little
I don't feel I was that taken out of here. Like I really do when I see these. I try to just you really have to suspend your disbelief. I mean, and I don't think too many things bothered me that much that disrupted my overall enjoyment. Not like a lot of other DC movies.
Yeah.
And I think this movie was like you said, it was fairly cookie cutter and predictable. Although I'm kind of wondering if people were possibly surprised or swayed by the reveal of that Black Adam was the dad, not the son. I mean, clearly we knew that going into this because we know the backstory of the character. So, I mean, do you think that someone not knowing anything about this character see this movie, and do you think they were surprised by that twist? I mean, personally, I also heard The Rock's voice as the father in the beginning. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, I knew when it was like a little kid, I was like, well, even the trailer itself, he says something in the trailer of like they took
killed
my
my
son. Or, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, it's a little boy right here, and they don't show the father, but it's got the Rock's voice, so it wasn't like a surprise to me. I actually did like that whole aspect because I really liked that his son had more courage than him, and so his vengeance almost comes from his sort of lack of courage, or like his what's the word? I don't want to say flaccid, but like he's not like manly enough, and so that's where his vengeance came. It's like when he finally got power.
Yeah, his vengeance came. His power came from pure rage, really, and a desire for revenge rather than a place of wanting to better his and save his people.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
So
and not his power, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
Motivation.
right. And so I actually did like that whole aspect, and it added like a little bit more depth to the character.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I guess what I mean is, do you think that would have had more of an impact had we not known it? Like, if you didn't know that going in, and you didn't figure it out, do you think that would have kind of hit better?
Yes, absolutely. Like, I actually really like the fact that he tells that to Hawkman. And Hawkman, it's kind of interesting because he kind of goes back and forth, almost being like a joke that keeps getting like knocked down by Black Adam. But then they're allies, and I like that he can kind of hold his own against Black Adam, who's essentially like almost a Superman level threat. So
Yeah.
I didn't want Hawkeye to just be a joke or just to be a punchline. Hawkman, not Hawkeye. Oh man, he would get swamped by Black Adam. But yeah, I liked that aspect. I like that like Black Adam reveals that to him, like
Yeah.
and they go have a conversation.
And I liked that they came to an understanding by the end too. Also, I think that the tension that they had was pretty good overall, except for that very beginning thing where they were so clueless. But otherwise, the tension was pretty good there.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot more to this too, right? Like, there's other points I wanted to say too, like, and it's funny because we still have to talk about Andor, we still have to rank these things too. But okay, one other thing is, I think that The Rock has it in his contract to where he can't really get beaten up by anybody.
Yeah, that's in a lot of major action heroes contracts, that they can't lose or be humiliated to a certain extent, because and it's true. Like we said, The Rock sold this movie, not the character of Black Adam. So that's future box office money right there if he's a joke.
Right. So like, he doesn't really ever get beaten up. I mean, there's at one part where he gets shot by the Eternium, and then he sort of gets scratched up a lot by Sabak. But otherwise, he's just this badass throughout the whole movie, and that could be kind of unappealing to me, just to have this.
Oh yeah, that's a prime argument for people who hate Superman. I mean,
right. And so he does eventually humble himself after he, in his rage, almost kills the boy Amon. But then he goes into this prison, and that prison leads us to my second favorite part of the whole movie, which is the Peacemaker cameo.
Yes, I actually looked over my wife like that when Jennifer Holland showed up. That was pretty cool. Although yes. I'm curious as to how that all fits in with the Peacemaker show, and it's interesting because I mean, you look at the tone of the Suicide Squad, of Peacemaker, of this movie, and all three of them are different to me. So it's like almost like seeing three different versions of the same character, I guess.
Yes, very good point. I mean, the whole DCEU is just like all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
And it's just weird because it's like, in Peacemaker, they have this kind of like small operation where they're like operating out of a fucking like Winnebago or something. And then she's in this like underwater maximum security.
Exactly. Like, how did she get back that good in Waller's graces? I mean, granted, I know that they ultimately succeeded in their mission in Peacemaker, but still, it's like, that's a big jump.
Yes, yeah. It was just really great to see that callback though to Peacemaker.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, just so we have time for Andor, because the thing is, I always like to cut it under an hour so I can just pop it up on YouTube real quick.
Yes.
But just so we can go into Andor 2, do you want to just jump into our rankings?
No, we got to talk about Superman real quick. Him showing up. I mean, I know we did. Just what do we think is going to happen with that? I mean, to me, I don't think Superman needed to be in it, but I think because of because of real world situations, I think that was an awesome cameo because we know that he's potentially actually back as Superman now, and they may actually do something with Superman rather than shelving him. And it really puts that the Shazam post credit scene to shame now, where they don't show his face,
Yeah,
or his silhouette, like in the Peacemaker finale too. I was just because of real world circumstances, that's why that was exciting. In universe, not exciting, but real world, very exciting.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I think that, like, if they were to write the ship, because there's 13 movies, if they were to all of a sudden from this point on start to really care about lore and continuity and start to make these things match up and make sense more, I would forgive everything that's come before, going all the way back to Man of Steel in 2013. 9 years of movies, I'd be able to kind of like forgive a lot of the low points if they were able to like make this a shared universe now and move forward. I don't think that's going to happen, but the cameo,
it's an uphill battle.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of weird to see him too, because like, he's one way in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and then you have this sort of Frankenstein's monster that is the Justice League movie, and he just seems totally different. Like, speaking of like Harcourt being different, Superman is like totally different in Justice League than he was from those other two movies.
Yeah, agreed.
And so, like, in this movie, he seems more, he looks more like that Justice League version too. So it's like, I don't know. But if he's the same character and it's Henry Cavill for the rest of this time now, I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, so you want to do this fucking ranking then?
Let's do it.
Do you want to go first this time? I went first.
Let me go first because mine's real shaky, and you can pick mine apart afterwards. So,
okay, start from the bottom.
As I said, it's shaky. I very could change this here. The middle, I'm fairly confident about the bottom and the top, just like Marvel. But the middle is like, I'm like, I don't know, man. And, and I think there are a lot of movies I have some that to me have some pretty significant problems.
Fuck yeah.
I have to exclude Joker. I have not seen Joker. I don't plan on seeing Joker, so I'm always going to be probably excluding it. I have this, like, the kind of people that have adopted that movie is like some kind of like calling. I just have no interest in seeing the movie.
Okay, totally understand.
And they're gonna have to do some serious work if that supposed musical sequel is true or not to get me to go see it.
With Lady Gaga, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so at number 12, you'll have 13. I only have 12. I have Suicide Squad. I think that's a clear loser here.
Yes.
Not much to say there. Next, I have Justice League. Now, we're talking about Justice League. We're not ranking the Snyder Cut here. Wasn't theatrical. I think I would rank the Snyder Cut separately, and I would put it in a different spot than this. Meaning I like the Snyder Cut better than the theatrical cut.
Ditto.
Overall.
Absolutely. Yes.
At number 10, I have Wonder Woman 84. I had a lot of problems with that movie. Number 9, Batman v Superman.
Did you just take my list?
Well, no, we always agree on the bottom and sort of the top, but the middle is where it gets a little muddy.
Okay. Yes.
10, Wonder Woman 84, 9, Batman v Superman. This is where I'm kind of like, I don't know what the hell to do here. I have 8, Aquaman. 7, Birds of Prey.
Right.
6, Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay.
Now, for me, I loved Wonder Woman, but I really, really think the third act took like a dive off a cliff. It drops it down. It drops it down to mid-tier for me.
Okay.
5, I have The Suicide Squad.
Okay.
I also think that has a weird middle act.
Yes.
But I like the opening act is very strong, and I think the third act is decent. But in the middle, it's just like, I don't know.
I agree.
4, I have Shazam. 3, I have Black Adam. 2, Man of Steel, and 1, The Batman.
Ooh, very nice. There's only one glaring difference between you and me on this list.
I'm guessing it's Black Adam.
No, well, I guess Wonder Woman and Black Adam are like the ones that are sort of different. Then. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll go through mine real quick then. Suicide Squad 13, Justice League 12, Wonder Woman 1984 11, Joker is 10. So I think Joker's better than those three movies. Batman v Superman, Aquaman, Birds of Prey, Shazam. Then I have Black Adam. Then I have The Suicide Squad. Then Man of Steel. Then I have Wonder Woman. And then I have the Batman. So Wonder Woman and the Batman both have these amazing, amazing moments that capture the essence of the character very well. And I feel like my life is better for having seen them. And it's Wonder Woman coming out of the trenches. I feel like that's like maybe better than anything else on this list. And then the Batman, that sequence in the very, very beginning when all the criminals are looking up at the bat signal and getting scared, that's like fucking phenomenal too. So like those scenes really capture the essence of the characters, and those scenes alone kind of make the movie, honestly. Man of Steel, that's not really Superman to me. Like he feels off. He's not really what I picture Superman being. It's a very cold Superman movie, a very violent Superman movie, but it's still a movie that feels complete with like a vision, and they know what they're doing. Some of these movies really, truly suffer because they're just these sort of edited amalgamations where, directors were fired or people came in and just changed the movie. Yeah. And I mean, the clearest examples are the two lowest movies on our list, Justice League and Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And I feel like Justice League has a leg up on Suicide Squad because at least it was like a little bit more fun and it has the kind of the iconic characters that we like, but it's still horrible. And then Suicide Squad is just this kind of bleak thing that they kind of shove a little bit of brightness and silliness into, and it just doesn't work at all.
Yeah, I think there is some heavy editing in that movie and heavy cuts. People, we talk about the Snyder cut. People always make mention of the Goyer cut.
Yeah,
Ayer, is it Ayer? Goyer's a writer. Ayer, the Ayer's cut. Yeah. And I don't think it exists or anything like that. And I think it would probably take more work than it would for the Snyder cut.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll ever see it. I don't think that scenario where they did that will never happen again, ever. Right. That's a once in a lifetime thing based on the real world conditions of the pandemic and all that, just to get something new out on that service at that time.
Right.
Otherwise, that's not going to happen. They even admit to that being a mistake.
Yeah.
And I could totally see why.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with after that.
No, I mean, it's just such a weird hodgepodge of movies and different tones. And I mean, if you ever want, go ahead. No, I was going to say, if you ever want to just go through these movies in chronological order, in order of their release, I would gladly talk in depth like we did about Black Adam today, about each of these.
Yeah.
Because I think we've only covered the Suicide Squad as a channel, right?
Yeah, because there hasn't been as many coming out as Marvel and all that. What I was going to say about Suicide Squad is that they really needed to cut that whole supernatural element out of it. I think it was way too odd for it, and it was just a mishmash of things in that movie.
Yeah. So that's our rankings, and who knows? Maybe it'll change moving forward. We'd love to hear your rankings, guys, if you're watching at home and you want to comment too. But Brian, do you think that we can talk about Andor in about 6 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Closing thoughts. Give me more Justice Society. Done. Andor.
Good, okay.
Standalone episode this week. Interesting, huh?
Of what? Of Andor?
This is a standalone episode. This is not a 3-arc. This is a standalone episode, and then the next 3 will be an arc, and then the last 2 will be a 2-part finale.
Oh. Okay, I didn't know that. That's interesting then. Okay, so spoilers for Andor. He ends up arrested at the very end of the episode. Do you think that we're gonna jump forward in time, or is he gonna get bailed out of prison?
I don't think it's gonna be too much of a time jump here. Maybe a little small one, a couple weeks or months, something like that. Yeah. But we're not gonna be like, oh, he's been in jail for 2 years. That's not gonna happen, I don't think.
Okay.
They're gonna keep it somewhat contained. There is a very limited time frame where this show can happen in.
Yes.
So they really can't mess around too much.
Yes.
I did like this episode. It's kind of a resolution. It kind of bridges the two prior arcs together a little bit. We speculated if we were going to see that planet. What planet is that where he starts off on?
Oh, Ferrix.
Ferrix. We didn't know if we were going to come back to Ferrix or not. We didn't know if we would see his mom or Bix or anything like that ever again. They made a point to keep showing Cyril Karn throughout the last arc, but no one else from the prior arcs. So, and then also we see Vel in this again, who I thought might have been disappearing too after that arc. Heck, we even see the girl that left behind on Aldhani.
Whatever her name is.
There. So I like how they're bridging things together here. That we're going to keep seeing the growth of this network that Luthen is a part of here. That is, the early stages of the rebellion. Actually, I even felt very odd rooting for Miro in that council meeting there. Like, I'm like, well, holy shit, I'm rooting for someone in the Empire. Like, this is weird.
Yes. It's funny because I remember someone, there's that meme where there's guys like watching a TV show and they're kind of excited, and then there's the next picture and they're like, yeah. And like they had that meme, but they were like, oh, it's an ISB meeting, and all the guys were like, yeah, like excited about like an Imperial intelligence meeting, right?
But yeah, like it's like making bureaucracy like interesting or fun or something. It just doesn't work,
Right. I mean, not in Star Wars. Star Wars, it's kind of like where it comes to a grinding halt. And you're like, okay, can we get to the action? But I'm always intrigued by the stuff with Dedra is her first name, right? I'm always intrigued by that because it's like she seems to be the one that's knowing what's going on behind the scenes, or she has an idea about it, but she keeps getting thwarted. But in this particular episode, she actually got more power,
Yes. She took away a sector from Blevins.
Yeah, Blevins.
Because of her investigation where she took advantage of the attack on Aldhani, of the garrison, where some of the restrictions were lifted temporarily.
Yeah. Do you think that her and Karn are gonna meet up eventually?
100%. They're both on the same page. They've been showing them recurringly. They're going to come together at some point in this series, without a doubt.
Are they going to bone?
In this show, yes, they are 100% because this show has boning. Never before in Star Wars, but this show has boning.
Yes,
I mean, look how quickly Andor moved on on that other planet. He had a girlfriend. He was already living with her.
Yeah, he was boning already on that beach planet. That beach planet was badass.
I want to go to that beach planet. That place looked awesome.
Yes, and I think we have just enough time to say that there was a K2SO looking droid, one of those interrogator droids. I bet you were happy. That's one of your favorite
I was very excited for a second. I'm like, maybe that's the one.
Yeah.
It probably isn't or anything like that. But I was excited. I am a fan of K2SO. I really like Alan Tudyk, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And probably my favorite scene in this episode was of Mothma. God damn it. I leave the subtitles on for this show and Game of Thrones, just because otherwise I'll never get the names right. And still I don't get the names right. And I know this character. Like she's in the other movies and all that.
She's from 1983.
The scene where she's talking to her friend like discreetly at the party was absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Great writing, great setup for overall, plot movement. I really appreciated that scene, and that was, I think, the best scene that they've had with her in the show yet.
Totally agree. Totally has that sort of that pre-World War II or post-World War II feeling of like we're living under fascism, scared. Like I'm scared to even tell someone about my thoughts because I could get killed or arrested. Great tense scene, and it made her character look great. That was my favorite part of the episode too. Also, we see the original Clem, and we see how he died. We saw clone troopers on Ferrix.
Yep.
And he basically essentially got in trouble because someone else threw some stuff at them, and then he got arrested. I think he was hung. And then Andor ended up getting arrested because of something that some other people did too. We got 20 seconds left. We got to say goodbye to y'all. We'll talk more about Andor next week. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe, and we'll see y'all next week for some more Andor and some other shit.